black thing go from left to right, and I thought, I'm going to die out here. No one's ever going to know.
I couldn't believe what my eyeballs were showing me. I'll never forget how evil the eyes were. It was horrible. I mean, I've never seen nothing that evil.
It ran towards me at a rate that I can't even explain. Turned and stared at me, and this look of, I just want to kill you. I want to say it was human, but it wasn't.
He was yelling at me to grab a gun, grab a gun. I was like, for what? He said, just grab a gun. And there's footprints all the way to the door of my house. It had went inside my garage, all the way to the door.
911, what are you reporting?
Jesus Christ, you better...
Sir?
See ya!
Hello?
Get somebody out here.
What's going on now, sir?
That son of a bitch is about 6'9", I don't know.
Do you see him now, sir?
Yes, I'm looking right at him.
Uh-oh.
You're listening to Sasquatch Chronicles. Check us out online at sasquatchchronicles.com. If you've had an encounter, email me. My email address is wes@sasquatchchronicles.com. Welcome to the show, everyone. Thanks for being here tonight. Got a great show planned for you tonight. Going to be speaking to Chris. And Chris had a very interesting encounter when he was very young. He was out, I believe he was fishing, ice fishing, and he ran into one of these creatures. Very, very fascinating stuff. And also Chris will be talking about a couple other encounters that he had. And one of them, I know the area really well. It's on the Molalla River in Oregon. And a lot of people go missing in that area. There's a lot of strange things that happen around that river. And I've had a lot of encounters off the air. People have called me, even a police officer one time called me about an encounter he had down there. You'll definitely want to stay tuned for that. I'll also be speaking to Sheldon. And Sheldon is up there in Canada. He'll be sharing his encounters too as well. If you've had an encounter and you'd like to be on the show, shoot me an email. My email address is wes@sasquatchchronicles.com. And again, I really appreciate you guys being here tonight. Let's jump into it. Chris, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks, Wes. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you being here. And I know you actually had 3 encounters. And the first one, actually, you had a good visual when you were 11. I think you were 11, were you, Chris? That first one?
Yeah, about 11. 11, maybe 12, yeah, maybe 12, 11.
Well, let's start there, if you don't mind. Will you tell us what you were out doing? And did this happen in Washington State?
No, this actually happened up in Alaska. I was living in Washington at the time, but my parents took myself and my younger brother on a trip up to Alaska where they had previously lived. So we got to go up there, and it was there in Alaska where I had the sighting, brief sighting. But we went up there probably around 1981. Well, I'm pretty sure it was 1981. I don't remember the exact time of year. I suspect it was late winter or either early spring, just because the lakes and stuff were still frozen over, but it wasn't, deep Alaskan winter. It was starting to get a little bit better. So, and basically we went with my parents outside of the town called Fairbanks, a pretty large town there, but outside of the town there's a lake, which I understand is called Harding Lake. And my parents had some friends that owned a cabin up there, and they wanted to go visit them, and so we all went over there to visit them. And we got there visiting with these people, but, I was 11, my younger brother was maybe 8, and we got pretty bored, so we decided to go explore outside, and they were on this lake. The cabin was in a wooded area, and then they were on the lake and whatnot. And when we went out there to the lake, we noticed that there was a hole in the ice where some ice fishermen, we presumed, had been fishing earlier in the day. So we thought, wow, let's do some Alaskan ice fishing. And we as we were exploring out there, we found a big tangled mess of fishing line and that was attached to a hook. And so we decided, well, let's try this out. So we borrowed a piece of bread from the cabin owners. I don't even know who they were. And tied that string onto, or that fishing line onto the a stick and went out there and was ice fishing. And when we went out on the ice, I immediately felt like, I don't know, kind of like something was watching us, but it wasn't like this overwhelming, just like I felt like someone's watching us, so we're kind of always looking around and everything. It wasn't anything terrible. I mean, I was a scaredy cat as an 11-year-old, so if there was something terrible, I would have probably ran. But it was just a interesting feeling that I thought was kind of weird. And we were fishing for, maybe, I don't know how long, maybe 15, 20 minutes. And my younger brother, said he got cold, and he decided he was going to go inside. But I didn't want to be a quitter, and I wanted to catch a fish in Alaska. That was my goal for the day, obviously. So I decided to stay out there a little bit longer. And as I was fishing out there, I caught out of the corner of my eye some movement, and I was maybe 15 feet out into the ice, and then to my right, about 2 o'clock, the shoreline kind of scooped into a bay, and so it was across this bay or inlet, I don't know what it was. It was across the other side. I noticed some movement over there, and I looked, and I couldn't quite see anything really, so I kept fishing, and then I saw the movement again, and I looked, and to me, my very first thought was, I was looking at this, gray-haired Alaskan prospector. That was the first thought to my, I'm in Alaska, I've never been there before, so that was my thought. I've seen an Alaskan prospector. But almost as soon as that thought came to me, my mind's trying to make sense of what I was seeing. As soon as I thought that, I realized, no, that's not a man, because it was dark gray, hair, but it was all the way down, and it was not a human face, and it definitely wasn't a bear face. It was, I knew what Sasquatch was because I was, interested in that. So immediately, as soon as I saw that, I realized I was not looking at a human or a bear. I was looking at a Sasquatch. And for the second there, I just froze. I was like, what's going on? And he was staring at me, and he was staring at me above some bushes, and I can't be positive, what the height was, but my estimation was that the bushes were about 6 feet, and then his head above that. So I don't know, maybe that puts him 7 feet, I guess. I don't know. And that was the other thing that clued me in, that I wasn't looking at a human, at least a Homo sapien, was that was a pretty large person there. But I could only just see the head and then the tops of the shoulders, and then it was protected by the bush. But he was just staring right at me. And I froze and didn't know what to do. And I don't know how long it was, maybe 5 seconds, maybe it was 20 seconds. I couldn't really tell. Then I kind of snapped out of it and realized, I don't like the fact that this creature is looking at me. And so I dropped my stick with the line, and I ran off the ice as fast as I could and went in to the cabin. My parents were visiting with those people, and I didn't want to, disrupt things and embarrass my parents with their friends with this crazy kid coming in with this story, so I didn't say anything. I did mention it to my little brother, who was in there playing, that I had seen Sasquatch, and he was out there, and I always teased my brother, so he didn't believe me, so he thought I was crying wolf. But that was my sighting back in 1981.
It's a lot for a kid to take in, isn't it?
Yeah, it was. It was pretty frightening, and I couldn't quite wrap my head around it because, like I said, I've seen, some Bigfoot, Sasquatch movies and read some books, but when you see it in real life, you're almost like, there's no way I'm seeing what I'm seeing. But then you realize there is a way, and I'm seeing it, and kind of trying to reconcile that as an 11-year-old is pretty shocking at the time.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. Well, let me ask you this, Chris. For the audience listening, let's say the term Sasquatch, Bigfoot doesn't exist, and you were to explain to someone now, all these years later, what you were actually looking at. Can you go in depth and describe what you saw? Let's say Bigfoot doesn't exist, Sasquatch doesn't.